ID. It's gonna be 5 at the door. All right, you're good. You go inside. Cody, thank you so much for joining on this inaugural podcast that I'm starting. For everybody, my name is Kristy, and this is Cody HEGLER from CANT RELATE and CONTENDER. Tell me a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, I feel like my time in Tennessee has been cursed because I'm constantly dealing with leg injuries, man.
Yeah, you just recently got your calf shit on.
Yeah. So I moved here from Germany, actually. I'm from South Carolina, but I spent like 10 years in the Army and moved here and just like got involved with the music scene, and that's why I decided to stay when I got out.
What brought you to Nashville, Clarksville, kind of that area in the first place?
The Army. Oh, what made me want to? I don't know, man. I don't know. I always felt like every time I would drive. So I lived in Kansas, my first duty station. So when I would drive home, I would drive through like Tennessee. I'd go from like Clarksville down to Nashville and then cut over to go east. But I don't know. It was like there was always an allure to this area, and I was like, man, that's got to be the place where I need to go. And I had the opportunity to come here with the Army, so I ended up liking it enough to stay here.
And you've been doing
not so much.
Yeah, Clarksville is, I mean, it's basically just a military base, right?
No, it's actually it's a pretty decent sized city. Like when I first moved here, I didn't realize Clarksville was as big as it was. So the side of town I lived on, like I had no idea this side of town existed until like this year, pretty much, because I would always stay over closer to the border of Kentucky by the military base. But yeah, there's Austin Peay up here and all that other stuff. So I mean, it's a pretty big city. It's grown from what I've heard.
Yeah. It sounds like it has been growing. Like the connection between Nashville and Clarksville is definitely like, even from like bands, like all of the Clarksville pop punk emo bands are like playing with all the Nashville pop punk emo bands now. And I'm not going to say that's because of you and me. I'm not going to say that we're going to, do that, but we are definitely helping bridge the gap.
Yeah, we definitely are. I remember like our first exposure to bands out there was Sideline Heroes.
Sideline Natives is very funny.
So we saw them. We saw them play. It was Austin, myself, and Taj went to go see Belmont at the end in 2021. At the end of 2021, and we saw them like they opened up, which is like sick. And
that's like huge. I had no idea.
That's how we pretty much broke into that scene, and then we played our first Nashville show at the end. I haven't played there since. I don't know how the end is like. It seems like it's really hard to book if you're not connected with those people.
Oh man, I've emailed those guys, and it's like I feel like you just have to kind of get lucky and like be asked. But like that's awesome. Like so Sideline Heroes, those guys are great. I feel like you and I have played with them the most. We're playing with them on the 17th, so maybe this will even be released before then. Those guys are fantastic. They're like, when it comes to local emo, local pop punk, I feel like Nashville and even Clarksville has like this great little budding scene, man. I think there's like 8 or 9 of us that just like are constantly playing shows together.
Oh yeah, I feel like we should have like been touring of how much we played.
I mean, it's basically a tour. It's just constantly local.
that lineup of 95, Can't Relate, and Sideline. Yeah, we might as well have like toured.
So tell me a little bit about like being in a local band is like goofy and difficult. Like, so do you do like one of the things that I feel like not a lot of people talk about is how there's like you have to live 2 lives when you're not doing a band full time. you have to live like your life, and then you also have to live like your band life. Do you find that living those two things at the same time are like, isn't it exhausting?
It definitely is, especially when you're like, when you've got to like create an online persona with your band and you've got to be constantly posting, and it's exhausting. And like I used to do a lot of the posting, like, so it'd switch between Taj and I. We'd do a lot of posting on Can't Relate page, and I don't know, we just kind of got overwhelmed and fell off with it, especially with everything that's happened with us this year.
You guys have had ups and downs. You guys have been all over the place. But I mean, like when you're in this level, like shit like that can happen like all the time.
Yeah, it's like we start getting traction, and then it's just we'll be on the way up, and then something will happen, and like since we're on the record, like all of us have made up with that person that was formerly a part of this band.
Yeah,
in
that's
some
right.
kind of way.
Yeah, no, so, I feel like earlier this year, you guys, you know, sometimes that band stuff can like, there's so many attitudes in a room. And because again, people that are in bands are like, they have something wrong with them in the first place that they even want to be in a band.
Oh yeah, especially a local band. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, I want to be a local band and like do the pop punk emo thing. Like you got to be a little bit crazy, a little bit like a little bit screwed up. And so like when you have all those people in a room, I can only imagine like if there could be contrasting energies and brains in that room where like it might not work.
Yeah, there's always going to be one bigger personality. And I'm not saying this in a negative way towards anybody in my band, but there's always going to be like some kind of clashing, and like we've all been clashing. And I think it's because we haven't really sat down and figured out what we were going to do after the stuff that happened in June played out. Like it was just, all right, well, we got to keep going. We have all these shows. So
I think that makes a lot of sense, because it's like you guys never sat back down and like processed like what happened. And that can like be a detriment where it's like, okay, well, now we need to like figure out, sit down and like move forward together before we like do anything else, because that can, I think I totally get that. You guys coming together now like is probably so positive for the future.
It is, yeah. And like, I mean, I saw our posts, like we're definitely going on a short break so everybody can, you know, take care of themselves. And like, well, I guess, yeah, Taj and I, we wanted to, like, we've been trying to get a project off the ground since like March, and that other person was a part of that project too. And like, there's nothing negative, but like once all that happened, like Taj and I were like, I guess we'll just continue this as ourselves, but we're going to put it to the side for now because we're trying to get things back together. We can't relate. And it just never panned out. So we came into this year blazing fast, like playing shows, played with you guys. We played that awesome show at No Quarter. And then,
oh my God, that was crazy.
After we had a show, like one of my friends from high school, like I played in bands with him back pre-2010. He's a rapper now, and he was going on tour, and he was like, "Yo, do you guys want to play? I'm playing a Nashville date at the Cobra," and we're like, "Yeah." I told them we're doing it. I didn't care that it was a genre class. I'm like, "This is one of my homies. We're gonna do this, and it's gonna be fun." But it wasn't fun for, like, I had fun after the fact of playing. It felt very much like a chore. And that's when we started to see the decline.
I totally get that. And like, as for those listening, Cobra in Nashville is kind of like a place to cut your teeth in the local scene. It used to be this place called Foo Bar. And then I think the people that run it bought it themselves and turned it into Cobra. And like, I still love playing there. I'll play there whenever I get the chance to, because I just love that place and I love everyone who works there. But if you come down to Nashville, always try and catch a show at Cobra. Where else do you think is like a good place to like go cut your teeth? Like local Nashville stuff, local Clarksville stuff.
So Clark, we don't really have a we don't really have a venue right now. I mean, we do, but they are too like different. They're very contrasting. But as for Clarksville, like I mean, Rebel House has a pretty good vibe to it. It's just you got to play there on the right night, and it's all in Clarksville. It's all about who you play with, because each of these bands that are here that have been around a lot longer than we have
Totally.
have a huge built-in crowd. So like, but you can go down to Wicked Good, and Wicked Good has like it seems like anytime Wicked does a show, people show out. It's just a matter of who is playing, and that dictates how many people are going to be actually in front of the stage. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that it's like, that's again, one of the weird parts about being in a band like at this level is that it's, first of all, getting someone to say yes in like for a show. Booking is a fucking nightmare. And like when you talk to,
hold on, you're breaking up.
All right, here, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Booking is definitely a nightmare, especially in Nashville.
Yeah, I think that has been one of the weird eye-opening things is like, cool, you want to go, hey, I want to play music. And then you start making music and you start like reaching out to people, you start practicing, and then you're like, oh shit, I've got to like learn how to do the email thing.
Yeah.
Like, see, no, thank you.
That's like another thing I learned. So like throughout my time in the Army, I've tried putting bands together, but it didn't work out. Like I was in a band in Kansas. I was in a few bands in Kansas. I played in a hardcore band, and we played with Harm's Way, like before they fucking blew up.
That's crazy.
Like, crazy to think back now. I'm like, damn. But we, yeah, like I could just never get that going. And then in Germany, I found a bunch of people who were like-minded, and we were going to start like one of those like deathcore type bands, and I was playing drums, and it was like, and this is another thing, especially like you like not being able, if you can't find certain members, like, so I had to step up and learn how to do vocals so we can get that band rolling. But it never did get rolling, but I did learn how to do vocals. And
see, that's the part that is the best part about being in a band is like, first of all, having to learn how to step up and like do these things, like learning how to like record, learning how to mix, and like no one really has the money to do mixing and mastering here. Everyone's learning themselves. Like I can't imagine trying to be in a local band like in the 90s when everything was completely expensive and ridiculous. And like,
and it's all about luck and whose attention you caught.
Yeah.
And then you get it, and then they give you a fat ass check, and then you got to pay it back. Yeah.
Like the advanced system, like I think being a band right now is, I think it's a weird cross between like, it's a little bit less risk because the way to make music is way cheaper. Like you can get Logic for $200. By the way, fuck Pro Tools for the rest of here and forever. I will never,
I'm on,
like Reaper. I know a lot of people use Reaper.
Reaper. Yeah. We're using Reaper. Like we're CANT RELATE is a Reaper band, and I'm pretty sure Contender is going to end up being a Reaper band. We're actually in the process of recording our first demo right now.
Hell yeah. Do you want to spill the name of it?
We don't really have a name. We call it, so Taj and I have been on the Dracula Flow hype train. And for those of you who don't know, it's that dude, the older guy that's like, keeps showing up on TikTok dressed as Dracula saying some like, we smoking dung beetle. So it's the code name right now is Biscoff Butter.
Okay, cool. We love it. We love that.
We haven't really thought of a name yet.
I think that is like when you start planting those seeds and you start like just, I'll never forget like meeting and talking to people about this, about being in like music and deciding to start music. I mean, I'm fucking 35 and I never thought that I could start doing music now. And so just like doing it and like learning to record, it just happens. I think it's not up to us in a way where it's like, there's always the pull, there's always the gravity towards doing this, and it's a self-masochism kind of thing. Like this is not easy for any of us, and for some reason we all fucking love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just like, I mean, at some point it turns into how bad you want it, like how bad you're willing to sacrifice, how much you're willing to sacrifice for the greater good. Because I recently like went on tour with Autumn Lies Buried from Clarksville. They're a deathcore band. Just check them out. They like fuse hip hop and deathcore. If you guys are listening, but they had been around. Apparently, that band has been around since like 2007. I didn't know that. Like, so my first exposure into the scene here actually is that I was getting ready to leave Germany. I was sitting outside of my car. We had to show up to one of the medical buildings out there and get a shot, and I had already got my flu shot. So I was just like, I was sitting in my friend's car waiting because I didn't have a car at this point. I'd already sold it, and saw a post. I joined the Clarksville music scene, or Musicians of Clarksville, whatever the page is called, and I saw a post for a band looking for a drummer, and then I was like, I messaged him, and then they sent me the music, and I was like, oh wow, this is fucking great. Let me like learn how.
Oh my god.
We learned how to do this. And then I never really I was going through a lot mentally at that time, and I was dealing with a lot of stuff in my personal life, and I never really dedicated the time to practice. And that's another thing about living, like being a soldier and living in the barracks, trying to do music, especially if you play an instrument like drums, practicing consistently, it's a nightmare. Like you gotta either know somebody who has a house, or just be like me and be willing to go sit outside in the middle of nowhere and play fucking drums.
Dude, I think that's a huge problem, specifically in Nashville. Like Nashville being Music City, it completely is. But that means that it's harder to get anything done. The fact that there's not like a completely reasonable practice space thing that doesn't cost like an actual arm and a leg, is a tragedy. Like
you guys were playing in a storage unit, weren't you?
We were playing in a storage unit. It was like a little over $200, and that was cheap. I thought I found like the cheapest one, and
that was a thing to do back in the day. Like I remember when I just got out of high school, and I was like trying to put a band together, and we're like, well, let's get a storage unit to practice in, and that was the thing to fucking do. And my mom would be like, she'd be like, I better pay those bills, or they're gonna take all your stuff and auction it off. I'm like. And like, parents have got to like spit you those like words of wisdom.
Oh my God. I mean, the first band that I was ever in, where I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot here. I was in a band in high school called the Fedoras. And it was,
that's why your fantasy team is named the Fedoras.
No, that's, my buddy, another member of the Fedoras is playing with us. And
that explains it. Oh, that explains it.
And that's why he named that. And I was like, come on, man, don't bring that shit up. That shit sucked. I got kicked out of that band because I kept getting grounded. I wasn't like a great student. And so like my parents would take the band away from me when I wouldn't do well. And so it happened so much that the band kicked me out. Actually, there are 2 members of the Fedoras that are playing in fantasy football, in our fantasy football league. That's really funny, and I didn't put that together until right now.
Yeah, I'm like, once you said that, I was like, okay, it all made sense.
Yeah,
back to what I was saying about like how bad you want it. Like those, like the dudes in Autumn Lies Buried definitely put in the work. And there's some people around here like, oh, I'm like, no, they definitely put in the work. They definitely deserve everything they got. Like they released a badass song with a badass music video that blew up in 2020, and it just kind of went up from there. But these dudes, we were touring in this fucking van for 10 days, and it had no fucking AC. Like being up north, or it was not a van, it was a bus. Like they had like decked out this bus, but being up north, like we went through like Illinois, Wisconsin. We started here in Clarksville. Then the next day was Evansville, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. Those dates were fine because like up north and like in the Midwest, it wasn't too hot.
Yeah, it was so hot this summer.
Once we got down to once we got to Kansas, I was like, fuck. I was like, yeah, we're not sleeping in the van. I'm gonna pay I'm going to pay money out of my pocket so we can all sleep in a fucking Airbnb, and you can invite everybody who's on this tour right now to come to this Airbnb. And
oh my God. Was it like 15 people in the Airbnb?
Well, so one of the bands, that was their last night on tour, Quiet and Mantis. Those guys are great. I love them. Probably, what's his name? Jordan. I think, yeah, Jordan. Yeah, Jordan is one of like the most fucking photogenic people I've ever taken photos of at a show. Like, you could just like hold your camera there and just take a picture, and like this dude would just look badass. And it's just like, and he's like fucking like super ripped too. So it's just like, damn. Like
Dude,
that's
shout out to photogenic fucking band people and grateful for them. I am not. I have the ugliest faces when I sing. You are very photogenic. As my favorite, you are my short king. You are very, you're very, very photogenic.
Damn. Yeah, there's something. Yeah, I would say that. Like I've seen a lot of pretty solid photos, but there's somebody took a photo of me where it just wasn't flattering, and I'm like, damn. But
but like, so the rest of that tour, like tour in itself, like that's so sick that you were able to do it. But like you did it from a different way. You did photography for another band.
And that was like one of those things I got to see. Like that was like, that to me is like the definition of being in the trenches, because they had never played, what's it called? They had never played the Midwest. They've like done South, they've done East Coast, and like, I think they've played out in like California a few times. And some of those shows, like there was literally, like, it'd be a weekend and there was like nobody there. Like they promote, like, and granted, this is like probably on the promoter too. Like there wasn't probably proper promotion, but like that was like, to me, that's the definition of being in the trenches, because it paid off once we got to like, we had to reroute from like Missouri to Norman, Oklahoma. And that show was all right. It was just, there was a very weird experience that I'm not going to talk about on this podcast yet, because, but once we got to Fort Worth was by like hands down the best show. And that's why I'm always telling you, like, we need to go and do a Texas run.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Fort Worth went out. Oh, they went off. Like, it was fucking insane. Like, and then Houston was all right. Like, I really liked the venue in Houston, but it was also called the End, of all places.
Of course, we love it. I mean, any place that does like metal, pop punk, emo, and they're called the End, like, it's such a good name. I would be surprised if there's like 30 or 40 of them across the United States.
That apparently there's only 3. I talked to the venue owner there. I was like, "You guys know there's an Inn in Nashville?" And she's like, "Yeah, there's also one in California somewhere." I'm like, "I should do like an Inn fest and just."
Oh, that's so good. Oh, the End tour, like just the last thing you do, or like, oh, that's good. That's a great idea. Something we'll do when we're in our 60s.
Yeah.
But no, it's when it comes to like other band stuff, do you ever feel like there's always this moment where you're kind of having to like budget for the band as well? Like, especially when it comes to like merch, like that stuff is like, I always find that to be really frustrating, because it's like, I love the music thing. I love writing music. I love playing music, but like, there's always a moment where people are like, well, I want to buy stuff from you. And I'm like, I don't have shit.
So like how it works with CANT RELATE is anytime we play, like, there's been times where like I've stepped up and so our recent merch, we just got from Thread in Manhattan. I paid out of my own pocket from that. And, but like we have a band fund pretty much. And if there's like comes to a point, like whoever needs to like step up to get stuff done, like I know Taj and I have like split songs and like mastering, because we used to go to I don't know where we're gonna go now, but we did go to Thomas up here, Eltrod Studios, and like make some pretty good sounding stuff, and it worked for what we were doing at the time. But we would like stuff like that is just, I guess, comes out of the band fund, or we have to fund it ourselves.
And that's always like a thing where it's like, listen, this is what we have to do.
Yeah, and there's no like questions about it. It may not happen right there, but like everybody's like, okay, well, I got to put money aside for this. Especially like when we played in Cincinnati, which was a very interesting experience. We like Austin and I, so I had just started going back to college, and Austin had got off work, and we met up. I left my car in a Flying J parking lot, and we drove straight to Cincinnati. We made it there literally right before we played, right before we got on stage to play. But we were playing Q Fest, and there was like a hardcore band that had a fucking crew there. But like, before I dive into that, like both times that we've played in Cincinnati, the first time I didn't play with them because like I was in the army and like shit popped off in Russia, and they're like, "You might deploy," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Well, I can't go, guys." But what I'm trying to get at here is that we all put money, to rent a van, like a 15 passenger van from the MWR in Fort Campbell. It's just like, I guess, budgeting towards things. Something's coming up, so you got to start saving money.
Yeah.
If you don't have it in your band fund.
Yeah, that's the one thing I know 95 is like, we did one merch run of that t-shirt, that black t-shirt, and there was
I still got to get my hat.
Dude, I know. We have the hat here. We're going to do a hat here in a little bit, but like we didn't know where all that money was. Like, it was like, okay, we got a bunch of cash here. We got like, we got Stripe here. We've got PayPal here. And I am not known for being an organized person.
Same.
So like when we're thinking about doing that again, I'm like, I don't even know where any of that fucking money is. And it's like, that's okay. That's what being in a local band is like, where you don't have to like worry about these things because you're not paying people to take care of that for you. I'm not in a big enough band. I'm not sure I know anybody in a band like that. That sounds crazy.
Yeah. That's starting a freaking new band. Like, it has we have no like experience. We're not really well known. We were trying to keep everything under wraps, which, I mean, we're still probably going to be like, yeah, we don't want people to know like who's actually in the band until we play our first show.
Yeah,
but
totally.
we're talking about, what's it called? We're talking about going to Jake from Free Throw to produce our EP and all that, and he charges like $500 a song, but like this is all something we want. And I know that like your drummer Cole's in our band too, but we haven't Taj and I are not gonna like rely on like the people we're bringing in to help pay unless they are really on board with doing this. And
totally,
I know how it is having a main project. And so if like Cole ever has to get pulled back to do like 95 stuff, like we can move our resources around.
Oh, dude. And Colton has his own thing. Like we love Colton, and Colton is going to do like, if he was in drums for 100 bands, it wouldn't matter because he would make sure that like everyone is like taken care of. Like,
solid dude, by the way, man.
We love Colton. Colton is the man. And he is, probably the most ridiculous drummer that I'm so grateful that we found him and he wanted to be a part of
it. That motherfucker is photogenic too.
Yeah, dude, that guy's the most beautiful man. Shout out Colton, fucking ex-Marine, like literally just like, there's so much. It's very funny how much around like the Army all of our bands are, which is just really, really funny. But yeah, so really, really quickly, if there's one thing you wanted to tell like your younger self about being in like a local band, what would it be?
Shit. What would I tell myself? I don't know. It's gonna suck, but eventually it might pay off.
Yeah.
We had talked with earlier this year. I mean, we didn't decide. I'm not gonna name drop anybody in this because I don't want to be like, I don't want this to come back and get me. But we had talked with a boutique record label, and we like all of the hardware. So what happened? What like got his attention is the fact that we put out all that pop punk stuff, and then we just switched it and released a metalcore banger.
Yeah, which is awesome.
And he was like, "Wow!" And so whenever I sent him our music, the first thing he clicked, I was like, "This is our most recent single," and he's like, and the first thing he clicked on was "Keep the Scene," and he's like, "People are calling this pop punk today," and then he like went down and he was like, "Yeah, I gotta get these guys on," but it turned out it wasn't really gonna like we kind of weren't at that level yet to like we weren't ready to take on that, and like we felt working with that record label wasn't gonna be in our best interest. But like that goes back to saying like no matter how bad it sucks, you know, keep grinding it out. Eventually, it's gonna pay off.
Do you think that like being on a record label actually has benefits now, or is it because like when I look back at like being on a record label, they would help you mix and master and like record. It's like they would front the bill, and then now that we can all do it ourselves, like I think being on a record label is just different now.
It is, and like the thing that we wanted from that record, like the one thing that we really were like banking on is their booking agent, like the booking agency they had, because that person had reach. Like they have bands that are touring, like they go on tours and like tour out in like San Diego and all that, and play shows out, and like it's two different. It's like I guess it's like he said it was the way he explained it is he's like, yeah, they're part of this, but they're also their own entity, and like and I feel like. From a touring standpoint, if you want to tour, you can book your own tours DIY. You just got to know how to put together a well scripted email. But if you can find a booking agency, and unfortunately, there's no booking agencies in like for like lower level pop punk bands. Like I've noticed all of the bands like that my friends are in that are playing like metalcore and stuff like that, deathcore. Like they have like it's crazy because like that community is like it's being brought into normalcy. And they have all these booking. You got like contingent continental booking. You have like triple diamond or whatever the heck they're called.
I think the booking thing is really strange because like I've never successfully booked a show. I've never, and I think that like every show 95 has ever played as we were asked. They reached out to us and I would pitch it to the guys. And they say, yeah, let's do it. And I think we did all of that at the beginning of the year. And I think that even booking is different now. I think everything is so different right now because like after looking at the DIY emo scene is just all Twitter, all Discord, and all community. And just everything goes down to the DMs. That's all it is.
Goes down in the DMs.
That's all it is. I feel like that when it comes to like anything of community, like right now, like I can't imagine being in a band in the early 2000s, where it really was like a MySpace email thing where now it's just, you can just like DM someone and be like, hey, do you want to, can I jump on that show?
Yeah. And like, speaking of like successful shows that I've booked, unfortunately, like, they've all been at Springwater, and let me
dude, shout out Springwater. Springwater is like Springwater. Cut your teeth at Springwater. 1,000,000%. That was our first show. Was at Springwater. Shout out CODY who books all that shit. Nicole is like the fucking shit. I will. There's so many people to tag in this podcast. God damn it.
So, we were talking earlier about not like getting the email and shit, right? So when I first moved here, like I had no fucking experience trying to book a show. And I went to a local show at the end, met some local bands. Like most of them, actually, I think all of them aren't together anymore. Like it was, Streetlight Curfew, The Couches, and all these other bands. And I was like, cool. I'm going to try and like book another show at the end. And I didn't know anything about booking. I had no idea, and because we had played with Borderline. Borderline Natives played with us on our first EP release back in 2021, and like we were trying to book shows with them, but I had no idea. Like I was like, do I get the bands first and then try and get the dates?
The relationship stuff is really, really hard. Like, I feel like that like, especially when it comes to emails and trying to find that point of contact, like. That is a nightmare in itself because they're probably only talking to like trying to get a show at the end. You're talking to that one guy. It's like this one guy that runs all of it. And I think he's like, it's either the old guy that runs the bar. That's like literally the most famous bartender of all time. And when it comes to anywhere else, it's just like, I'm so scared of booking. And learning to book, it sounds like an absolute nightmare. If I could just like be reached out to for shows forever and I just say yes or no and someone makes art for me and someone takes care of all that stuff, that's, oh my God, the pressure that is off my ass to like promote a show. Yeah. You guys got this.
I've gotten a lot better. And the first time, like I can, like, especially up here, I can, if I were to go to Dawn and be like, hey, I want to, like, you got anything open at Rebel? She's like, Rebel's very, you're not going to overplay our venue. You play here every so often.
No.
And after, like, even if you, because Clarksville, I think is such a small town and like the crowds are always hit or miss, like, and this is a philosophy that I don't know if I agree with it or not. But like, I believe there's some truth of not playing your hometown so often, but like a place like Nashville, you can play fucking one side of Nashville 1 week and then the other time, like the next time.
Oh yeah.
Play a different venue.
The frequency issue, the frequency problem is like, that's the hardest thing to figure out, especially in the beginning. Like, you know, we played all the time. Next year, we're going to play so little in Nashville. I'm hoping to just chill. Okay. So we're going to end it here. But I wanted to ask you at the end of this, like, what song do you want me to play of yours?
Can't relate.
Like, for like, can't relate. I'm going to put like a song at the end of it. So like, what song do you want?
Let's do Gifts. I feel like Gifts are Only Hate because those are bangers. Like Austin, that's Only Hate's Austin's favorite on the EP, and he feels like it's like not getting enough attention. And it kind of got butchered in the post processing of it. So again, it didn't get the proper chance. So I would say play Gifts.
Gifts. Okay, cool. Here's Gifts. That was Gifts by Can't Relate. This was the inaugural episode of 5 at the Door. Thank you guys so much for getting all the way to the end of the podcast. Woo! All right, I'm out.